Hey there, fellow streakers. It's Jeff and Jamie, and we are having a streaking conversation with you today and are excited to do so, but not that type of streaking. This is the type of streaking that is intentional, conscious, consistent, consecutive actions that lead to life-changing results.
Absolutely.
How are you, Jamie?
I'm doing great. Welcome to the podcast this morning.
We're excited to have you. And as we continue on our theme of times and seasons, and especially with summer coming around, it's here now, I guess.
Summer is here.
Summer is here. The kids are out of school. If they're not out of school, they soon will be. They
or
have
they're
been for
in
us
year
for a
round.
couple of weeks.
If they're in year round, I'm sorry. I've done year round. That's hard.
And with that comes some of the different challenges that come with keeping your streaks alive. So speaking of times and seasons, one of the things that we wanted to highlight a little bit this time around is our show today. We're going to talk about how you expand your community. We've got a couple of stories that we'll tell on that one. But before we get there, we've got to highlight a couple of streaks. One of them, and I'll just say this is Chris. I won't give his last name. He has a streak of turn the water ice cold every time I shower.
Whoa.
And he's been doing that for 56 weeks. That's over a year old.
Wow. I'm curious. What would be the best? I guess apparently there's something invigorating about turning your shower cold. I like my warm showers, and
I
I'm
was going
thinking,
to say, I wish people could see your eyes right now.
I know.
Because when I said that, you were completely, I think of the bucket of ice challenge, that went around that one
just
time.
That shock of
the shock.
But I guess maybe that's it. That was his way of saying, I'm going to jolt myself into this day. We're jump starting it.
It may be. So thinking about that, as far as Chris is concerned, congratulations, Chris for keeping that streak over a year old. That's what, 4 weeks over a year.
That's awesome.
That is absolutely fantastic. A great shout out to you. I think about go ahead.
I have a shout out. Can I do
what's
my
your
shout out? Or is you're thinking about in relation to Chris's?
I can go right back to his.
Okay.
Go ahead.
My shout out was to Jen, who has washed face at least once daily, and she's 153 days.
So those two relate to each other because one is, turn the shower cold one time or every time I shower. Woo!
At least for a moment.
And hers is to wash her face. In other words, in streaking, as far as who you want to be, there's 4 different areas, I believe, in which you can set streaks. Personal, and I define personal as relationships that you have personally with family, friends, and maybe neighbors, family, friends, and neighbors. That's your personal streaks, what you might do to be a person that is, more connected.
Okay.
It could be also personal with your community. Could be hobbies, things like that. Professional streaks, things that you do for your profession, your career. That's another area. So personal, professional, physical. These 2 streaks happen to relate to your physicality or your physical health and wellness.
Staying healthy. Yeah.
Right? All of that. In fact, we're going to tell I'm going to tell a story about expanding your community that relates specifically to being healthy and health and wellness. And then there's the 4th area, spirituality. Mm-hmm. And if you look at those 4 areas, last time we talked a little bit about keeping balance in your life and setting streaks in each one of those rather than obsessing in one particular area. Having an opportunity to look at yourself in those 4 areas and ask the question, who do I want to be? So I thought about these 2 streaks that we just highlighted, and I thought about it, who do I want to be? What is the B statement for the do of turning the shower cold at least, every time I shower?
Right.
And washing my face at least one time daily? Is that what it was?
Wash my face at least one time daily.
So what is the B of that? And I look at it and I think, it's really health and wellness. Mm-hmm. It's the opportunity of I feel invigorated, when I turn the shower cold. And there's probably some scientific studies out there that point to turning the shower cold.
I'm going to do a little research now and find out what those are.
I'm anxious to see if you will actually ever turn the shower cold.
I said I'd do the research. Didn't say I'd set the streak. This is what's great about streaking is each person is able to decide for themselves what their streak is and what their laughably simple is.
So for you highlighted the one on washing your face. What do you think that would be? I mean, if you were to have that as a streak, wash your face at least one time daily, why would you set that as a streak? What would be your B statement?
One. My B statement around that one. I think of it as just taking responsibility to take care of my body. Mm-hmm. Like having that, because obviously skincare and being able to have that face be cleaned off of all the stuff that we put on it and all of the things that it goes throughout the day. To me, it's taking good care of my body.
Have you?
So I want to be somebody who takes care of my health.
I guess I think of, now, I don't wear makeup. You do.
I do.
And there's some times where you don't take it off at night.
I know.
Is that true?
Don't tell people that.
Oh, so there. That's exactly
Great.
what you just said.
Thank you.
No, but I think that's what I wanted to get to is you kind of cringed when I said that.
I did cringe.
How come?
Because it's part of being healthy.
This.
Because I envisioned all of that gunk that I've put on my face just resting there all night long, and it clogs your pores, and it just creates havoc.
What does it do to you inside?
Inside, it makes me feel like I kind of, let's see here. Usually when I haven't washed my face, if I wash my face in the morning, it's kind of getting invigorated and starting the day. When I wash my face at night, it's the end of the day. It's the process of closing the chapter on that day and putting myself to bed in a relaxed manner. Like it's okay, this day is done. I've taken everything off, and I'm now allowing myself to rest and go to sleep. And so when I didn't do it, I never truly closed the chapter on that day. Does that make sense? I didn't close the door on that day. I just kind of fell asleep.
Yeah.
I didn't intentionally end the day. It ended for me. And so being intentional, I feel like washing your face is an act of being intentional. I want to be intentional because this is important to me. It communicates what I'm doing with my life, how I feel about myself, how I'm taking care of my body, how I'm taking care of myself mentally. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think washing your face has a mental aspect to it as well.
I think so. I mean, like you, I think closing the chapter on that day allows you to go forward.
Or opening the door on that day where you start by washing your face. So
or taking a very cold shower.
Exactly. You're embracing the day.
You're embracing the day.
Very dramatically. I'm impressed by that. One of the things that I've loved as we do these shout outs is that, and this totally segues into the talk about of a community, is I'm inspired by people's streaks. I'm inspired by the simple things that people are doing. So look at this. We took wash your face at least once daily. The cold shower one's not to me laughably simple, but apparently to Chris it's laughably simple. So good on you, Chris. But being able to look at it and see, okay, this is helping. These things help people to be who they want to be. The act of washing your face at least once a day is helping me to be the person that I want to be. That's inspiring. We're inspired by people making conscious decisions and being intentional to become the people they want to be.
It really is.
Because we understand that it's hard. It's hard to be the person you want to be. There's a lot going on in life. There's a lot of variables. There's a lot of things happening to us. It's hard. So
you bring up hard work. Because what I think about as far as with hard work is, what is the hard about it? You know what I mean? What is it that that is hard? And I believe the consistency is hard, which is why you have to make something laughably simple and also not only keep a record of it, but create a community around it. Now, I want to go to the community because it relates to what you were saying in regards to being inspired by the people who are setting these streaks and being inspired by what it is that they're doing. I was talking with Abby, one of our fellow streakers out there. Big shout out to you, Abby. Hopefully you're doing fantastic. And she was talking about keeping one of her streaks alive, which happened to be taking vitamins. And she went on vacation with, and we'd mentioned this in a previous podcast, but I want to expand on it just a little bit. She'd gone on vacation, her and her husband and her family, with another family. And her girlfriend that was there with her, the wife of the other family. Man, I'm just butchering this story. I'm
I know she's going to be like, wow.
You really
Let me tell my own story,
That
Jeff.
one came in with a lot of duct tape and baling wire. Okay, so anyway, they were talking. She was taking her vitamins. Abby was taking her vitamins. And her girlfriend asked her and said, how do you remember to do that? I mean, especially when you're on vacation, how do you remember to do that? And she said, well, I have a streak. And had the opportunity to explain to her what streaking was. Abby's community expanded by one that day.
Exactly.
And what was great is that it wasn't, because it was a streak, and there was a couple, as you look at a streak and say, and especially a laughably simple one, the person, her girlfriend that was asking her about it, was not intimidated by the streak. She was inspired by it. and wanted to celebrate with her.
And so much of what you've said, the what, we know we're supposed to take our vitamins. Like we know there's certain things out there but the how. When we're asking someone else, her friend was saying, how do you do that? And Abby was able to give her an answer. Let me tell you how. And I will tell you, and if you want to, you can start the how right now too.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite things to do is when I've been doing keynotes of late on streaking and talking with individuals about just the creating the community. And whenever I tell a story on a streak that maybe I've kept alive or someone else has kept alive, there's applause every single time. Every single time people applaud.
About that streak.
And it's really been invigorating for me. And why are they applauding? What is it about it that inspires someone to? Because what you're doing when you're applauding, if we really get down to it, is you're expressing an inward motivation or an inward excitement, would you say? Mm-hmm. And that inward excitement, you're applauding and saying, that's inspiring, that's fantastic. Well, one of the things I do at the end of the keynote is I ask, do you want to start streaking with me? And that, it just seems so fitting to say, let's start doing this together. Let's all go down this path together. Let's move it in this direction. So expanding the community, it's great to talk with people about streaking. And here's another little thing that comes up, and I want to see if this is true with you too. When you say streaking, there's always the, it's the hum or it's the embarrassed little laugh.
I don't know where to go with this because this says something about the kind of person you are, and I'm not sure.
I remember someone coming into our house, and in our house, right as you walk in, my office is right to the right, and Jamie has gotten me this great big steel block letters across the top of my bookcase that say streaking. And I remember this person, she walked in and she looked up there and she looked at me, she looked me and back at and she's like,
Streaking.
And
you could see in her mind.
She's trying to compute because we're not that type of people.
Right.
We're not sans clothes running across football fields. That's just not who we are. And so she's trying to compute this. And then when I explained it to her, actually I gave her the book, but others I explained to, it's amazing how quickly that definition goes out the door and your mind explodes into what you can actually do and accomplish to become who you want to be.
Right.
When you follow these simple laws of streaking. And that, again, is expanding the community.
Right. And I think it's so great how you've talked so much and we've talked so much about that the community, when we first started this, and I think a lot of people think this when they first read about the law number 3 is create a community, that the community is there to help keep you accountable, to help make sure that you're doing your streak, to be that accountability partner, so to speak. And that's, I think when we started, we kind of had that thought in mind a little bit, that we're like, maybe that's what you need. But that thought was wrong. And it's interesting because that was just our thought. It wasn't actually validated in the data that you were using when you were talking about, and as we were writing the book about the community. A lot of the communities that we were looking at, when we looked at streaks, winning streaks, and we talk about the Cal Ripken Jr. and the community that was there as they watched him break that record and the applause that was there. That community was not holding Cal Ripken Jr. accountable. There was no
that's a great
accountability there. They weren't there to make sure that he showed up. They were there to celebrate because they knew he was going to show up and to be a part of that celebration, to be a part of that moment. And that's what the community has always been about. But it's interesting to me that it took us a little time to recognize that.
Yeah.
That when we did the research, that's what was happening in the community, but we didn't recognize that till a little bit further in, that we're like, this has absolutely nothing to do with accountability. Mm-hmm. And the reason I bring this up is because we've had another streaker, June, wrote a blog, and one of the things that she said was that third law was a little hard for her because she says, I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to be held accountable to other people yet. And I thought, okay, she's in that same place where you start the community and you think the community's there to keep you accountable. But the community has nothing to do with accountability. The accountability comes all in keeping that chain alive, keeping that streak alive, and those days the days in a row of not wanting to break it. There's a huge amount of self-accountability there. The streak is what holds you accountable, not the community. The community is what celebrates with you. And
So what is it
as we
that's
do
inspiring about a community? Sorry, I just think about that, and because I'm looking at, and you brought up Cal Ripken Jr. and about, breaking the Lou Gehrig record of 2,130 games, and Cal Ripken Jr. did 2,131 and had the longest spontaneous standing ovation in all of athletic history, 22 minutes solid. People celebrated the consistency. I mean, they were so excited. And what you brought up as far as they weren't there to hold him accountable. I mean, he didn't feel accountable to them.
No.
In fact, if he'd stopped, 2 days before, he may have, felt very badly himself, or he may not have. However, the crowd was there more, and the community was there more to celebrate with him because it was inspiring. So what is inspiring about consistency? Why does it inspire people?
That's a good question. I think it's inspiring because it's hard. Being consistent is hard because it's something we all know we should be doing.
Yeah.
And because the other thing I was thinking too is that the community is there to celebrate and also to cheer us along. And in that celebrating, we are motivated to keep going. We feel it's nice when you know you're not alone in something. And maybe that's it. It's hard to be alone in things, and having a community of people
if you were
cheering you along is important.
Go ahead, sorry.
I also think there's an aspect of the community. So a community, what is a community? It's a community of people. Well, there's a couple different ways. You can have a community of people that are just watching what you're doing and celebrating
That's
it with you.
what I was going to go to. That's what I was going to ask you.
But you can also have a community of people that are interested in that because they're doing that same thing.
Yeah.
So you may have a community of writers that have similar streaks that are all writing. And so being a part of that community, you start to learn from one another. You can ask questions of one another because the interests are the same. They're going through the same challenges, or maybe they've experienced something you haven't, and you can ask questions. And so that community becomes a resource as well as a celebration, but a major resource to be, even simple things like, do you have a pen that you love? Or what are you reading that inspires your writing? Or do you know what I mean? Just different things.
That's really good, yeah.
That the community becomes a part of you, so you celebrate. They're a resource. They're inspired and inspiring. And so you get to be both aspects of that. Sometimes you're asking people and they're the resource to you. Sometimes you're the one volunteering the things that you've learned. So you're a resource to them. Sometimes you're the one that's inspired. Sometimes you're the one that's the inspiring one.
How would you recommend that someone expand their community? Because I'm asking that question to myself as well, as far as I think about expanding my community. One of the upgrades that I'm really excited about on the app is right now the community the community is a little bit thin, if you will. So in other words, I friend someone, they friend me, they share a streak. There's a lot of purposeful things that you have to do to get your community going inside of the app.
I feel like you wrote a great analogy the other day about or a story article about learning a musical instrument, and that, for example, when you're learning violin or piano, when you start out, you have to have a lot of intentionality around thinking about where you put your fingers in conjunction with where, on the strings or on the right piano key. I feel like that's where we are in the community in the app. There's a lot of intentionality to each little piece of it right now.
Yes. And what I'm excited about is, to what you were saying, is the upgrade that's coming, that'll be in the fourth quarter of this year, the upgrade that's coming, all of a sudden you can follow people and see where they're at. So you can look in on and be a part of their community, but not necessarily have to share your own streaks or share, what your community is.
You can follow and see what other people are doing in their streaks. And
I think that's kind of the allure, because the allure of social media, if you will, is that you've created a community of people that you're either following or have friended, and whichever platform you use, it's one or the other, following or friended, and that has created your community and expanded your community. And why do you want to expand it? Well, in those platforms, it may be for a whole bunch of reasons. I think of LinkedIn, for example, as a social network, and that social network of LinkedIn. Why do I want to expand that community? Because my professional contacts, as I go out and strive diligently to increase my career or my reach or whatever it is, I want to have those connections, and they want to connect with me, and that's great. So it's a mutually beneficial connection. What I look at with the app, as far as when it's coming out, is that this becomes the opportunity to celebrate with so many people in so many different ways. And some people may be asking and thinking, how come we haven't put together? I mean, I know we're on social media. In other words, we have Streaking Mastery, at Streaking Mastery on Pinterest and Instagram, on Facebook. What am I missing?
That's it. Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook.
Okay. And our website. And some may be asking, well, why haven't you started a group there? Why don't you have more of a group? We have our company, but one of the things that I've felt all along is that the community needs to be within the app, because then we're putting streakers together and all kinds of streakers. And if you want to look in on what streakers are doing, you're going to see posts and what they did to complete their streak and how they decided to complete it. And this sounds like a great big advertisement for the app, but it's not. I'm just more looking at it and saying, I think that's the beauty of having a social network and having the app, is you can expand your community in a way that's even simpler than what you had before, so that they can then celebrate with you.
Right. And what I feel like you're talking about is those groups of communities. So one of the things we talked about, summer's a great time to expand maybe your more personal community, because you're visiting family, you're visiting friends. You have the opportunity to share your streaks because they're going to be seeing you doing them and being like, why are you doing that? Or like with Abby, how are you doing that? Yeah. And so you can expand your more inner circle community. And then the app gives you the opportunity to expand that very broad outer circle community, which is less personal, but the opportunity to kind of more globally see and be inspired by what lots of people are doing.
Yeah, I think so.
So summer is a great time. These change of seasons is a great time to expand your community, because you have the chance to talk about how you're doing the what in the midst of change, in the midst of different schedules or different lifestyle changes. You've got and you can say, this is how I'm still doing my what.
Right. Also, what that will do is, with those questions, people will start their own streaks. That's one of the things I love about the streaking language, is it's pretty sticky.
Yes.
Once you hear it and once you think about it, you start to do it. I mean, a lot of people, before they even read the book, will start some type of a streak. And then when they read the book, they look at it and say, wow, there is a lot to this, a lot of power that I can put in place for this particular thing. So with that, I think that's a great place to end, because we're right there. It's hard to believe. If you haven't had a chance to review the book yet on Amazon, would you do us a favor and just go out and review it? Give it whatever stars you think. You don't have to write anything. You just give it whatever stars you think, because just being completely transparent and downright honest, reviews are the lifeblood of a book. And the more reviews it has, the more opportunity, more people get to see it. And we just want to share. We want to expand the streaking community. It's a huge movement that is moving forward in significant ways, and we want to invite a lot of people to join with it,
so that we can celebrate together our successes as we continue to become consistent in the things that we want to do to be who we want.
Reach out to us at Jeffrey, Jefffery, at streakingmastery.com, or
Jamie at JAMI at streakingmastery.com.
You can also follow us in any of the places we've already talked about. We're looking forward to talking with you again. But until we talk again,
keep streaking.